Hello and welcome to Blytheweigh Business News. Today I'm joined by the Chairman and Chief Executive of Brazilian Nickel. Guess what they do and where? Well, yes, they're developing a nickel project in Brazil. So I'm delighted to welcome Chairman Brian Menell and Chief Executive Mike Oxley. A little bit differently for Blytheweigh Business News. This is currently a private company, but doing exciting things. Brian, I'm going to come to you first of all. Great to have you on the show. We're talking about Brazilian Nickel and the POE project. Now, Brian, you've just joined the Brazilian Nickel board as chairman following TechMet's investment. Before we talk about Brazilian Nickel, a little bit of background, please, on TechMet, please.
Sure, Tim. TechMet is, as is Brazilian Nickel, a private company in which we're building a portfolio of world-class projects that produce, process, and recycle what we call technology metals, of which nickel and cobalt are prominent amongst them. So we have made a significant investment in Brazilian Nickel. And obviously, I'm very pleased and excited to be joining the company as non-executive chairman of the board at this enormously exciting point of the company's development.
So you said you're investing in technical metals. Now, you probably answered the question in many ways, but what was it which made you invest in Brazilian Nickel?
We have done a lot of work on scoping the landscape for all of the metals that we are prioritizing in the TechMet investment program. And Brazilian Nickel came out top as a near development nickel project globally. So it was, and was in a private company, which from a TechMet investment strategy point of view works. So, it was for those reasons that we engaged in Brazilian Nickel and have been participating in the company's funding over the last 2 years.
Okay, so Mike, your chairman, your investor, thinks you're an exciting project, which has got to be great news. Tell us a bit more, therefore, what does the future, what do the next few years look like from your perspective running Brazilian Nickel?
Yeah, hi Tim, and thanks for that, Brian. Yes, we basically have a 3-year plan with 3 legs to it. The key thing for us is to do the bankable feasibility study for the POE Nickel project in Brazil, and which we've already started. But alongside that, we have an interesting opportunity that not many companies like us have. At the site, there was a demonstration plant that we ran in 2016, 2017. And we're now looking to turn that into a continuously operating unit, basically doing a bit of debottlenecking, adding some extra area for the heaps and ponds. And so what we can do is we can get that to start producing 1,400 tons a year of nickel and around about 35 tons a year of cobalt, which gives us some interesting revenue. But also it's particularly important from the marketing perspective of our products, because we can start producing the nickel and cobalt products, demonstrating consistency both of quality and of quantity, and start bringing people in as customers, because we would look to them to help us develop the full-scale project after the bankable feasibility study, which will be finished early next year in the first quarter. And that will be producing 25,000 tons a year of nickel, 900 tons a year of cobalt, which is significant. I mean, that's more than 1% in each case of the world's supply at the moment. So that makes us a globally significant player. And then, of course, within that period of time, we want to move away from being a one-project company and start developing a pipeline of projects 2 and 3 and so on. And we've already started that. It's early days, and it's the third leg, but it's not our priority for the next couple of years. But we've already had some conversations with people in both Brazil, in the wider Latin American region, and also more globally on other continents. So later on, we want to start bringing those in so that we can build production up from the 25,000 tons a year from the full-scale POE project, up to 50, 75, 100,000 tons a year.
So potentially a globally significant producer of nickel and cobalt, and you're going to be Elon Musk's best friend if he's still in business, but you're going to be right there at the heart of the electric vehicle revolution. It's impossible these days to talk to any mining company, though, without mentioning those 3 letters ESG. I do understand you've got a very strong focus on ESG. Can you give us a bit of a feel for how you approach it?
Yes, I mean, we do. And I think this comes from the fact that, the team that we're working with we're still very much the founders of the business. And we've started from the ground up. And, in that sense, it's bottom-up development of good ESG standards, because since we've arrived on the site, we look to behave respectfully to the local community, respectfully to the environment. And those things build up through behavior, really, and values. And then later on, of course, we've codified these things. We've built the higher level policies and procedures for anti-bribery and corruption, anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing, all of these things that you need to have. But really, they're not much use unless the people at the very top and throughout the organization actually care about these things and make sure that we do things properly. So I'm quite happy and proud of the way that people have worked on this, because they take these things on board, and then we're building the systems and the detailed procedures around what actually we want to do.
Okay, and I've got to ask you this question, because we talk about ESG. A lot of that comes down, the environmental part of it comes down to carbon footprint. So what's Brazilian Nickel's carbon footprint going to be like?
We've started doing some work on this already. Our initial estimate at the moment is that we'll be around about 10 kilograms of CO2 production per kilogram of nickel that we produce. And to put that in context, the industry average at the moment we estimate is around about 25 kilograms per kilogram. There are some that are higher, up into the 70s, for instance. Now, what we are going to do is we're going to get an independent verification of this. There's a number of different ways that you can measure things. And we want to make sure that what we're doing is in line with industry best practice and allow that proper comparison between various different nickel producers. But there's a good possibility that we will be one of, if not the lowest carbon footprint for nickel production in the world.
And the other part of ESG is going to be diversity and local community and investment. Tell me about the diversity part of that. What's Brazilian Nickel doing for diversity?
There's obviously a number of elements to diversity. Brazil itself, of course, is very racially diverse. But we focused on probably the hardest part, which is gender equality. There's possibly two reasons for that it's the most difficult. The mining industry in general, is not noted for its gender diversity. It's seen as perhaps a male dominated area. And this is obviously something we want to move away from. But also, Piauí is a remote location, and we have certain challenges there that we need to address. One of the things that we did early on is that we made sure that the mine camp was very female friendly, that we didn't have shared rooms, that we didn't have toilet blocks and shared showers, that everybody had their own room and their own shower. And this has helped, and we've been able to, because of that, to recruit women both locally and to bring them into the area. And I'm actually very pleased to be able to say that for the first time, we've taken one of the catering staff that was working for us during the time of the demonstration plant, and she's now going to become an operator in the P&B 1000 plant, working alongside others in a highly important job in the company. And she will be joined by a new recruit who's also female coming into this role. So we've been able to start making progress on this, but we've got to recognize it's a long track, and ultimately we have to aim to bring women through the company and up ultimately to the board level, as we develop as a company and grow. Finally,
before I let you both go, Brian, can I come back to you, please? We've heard Mike talk about the great things Brazilian Nickel is doing. What was the exciting thing for the POE Nickel project when you first looked at it? What excited you about it?
I think first and foremost, the team and the quality of Mike and Oxley's process that they've pioneered over the last few years to make the extraction of nickel and cobalt chemicals from this type of nickel laterite ore body scalable and commercial and ESG compliant and low carbon footprint. We are at the beginning of a quite epic supply demand dislocation globally for the ingredients of the power energy transition and the electric vehicle revolution. And therefore, our industry needs to utterly transform itself in order to adequately supply this clean energy, sustainable future that we all want for our children and grandchildren. Projects like Brazilian Nickel's Piauí project and the other projects that within Brazilian Nickel we can develop with the team and with the process that they've pioneered will play an enormously important role in bridging this gap to supply this global transformation that is gathering pace every day.
Brian, Mike, thanks for joining us today. That was Brian Menell, Chairman, and Mike Oxley, Chief Executive of Brazilian Nickel, giving us a quick update on developments of the Piauí project in Brazil, where they're developing a very exciting nickel and cobalt project to supply that future demand from electric vehicles. That's all from Blytheweigh Business News for today. Thanks for watching.